friends, and welcome back to my crafty space. In today's video, I am going to be project planning with the Ali Edwards Evening Story Kit. If you have not seen this kit unboxed by Ali, I will leave a link in the post that accompanies this video, so you can go and check that out there just so that you can see everything if you haven't already. As for me, I have the whole story kit. I also have the story stamp, and then I purchased two of the add-ons for this theme. One was the felt stars and moons, and the other was the transparency pack. Some of these I'm planning to use possibly in some stories for the kit this time, and some of them I'm going to hold on to use potentially in my December daily later in the year. So I always like to get these when I have a chance to. Okay, you guys, so I'm going to just dive right into all of this and start to figure out what stories I can tell with this kit. I will do as many stories as I can, plus a week of Project Life, since I have not used this kit yet to do a Project Life spread. So I think that will be really fun. All right, let's put you guys on fast forward and get to work. Okay, friends, so first thing I'm going to do here is show you which of these 6x8 transparencies I'm going to set to the side to potentially use in December daily later this year. So there was the gold stars, there was one that was a green like starry night, and then one that was a red grid like pattern. So those three I think would be perfect for December daily, potentially later in the year. So I'm going to set those aside. That leaves me with two more transparencies that I will see if I can get used during my planning today. The next thing I did before I go into all of my journaling cards is to look at these large circle transparencies. These are going to be, or at least I felt at the beginning of my planning, that these were going to be the trickiest to find ways to use. So I wanted to pull them out and see if they sparked any stories just in and of themselves. And really two of them did right away. So the one that says, I often think that the night is more alive, more richly colored than the day, I thought that that would be a really good sentiment to use on a large photo from my wedding day. My husband and I actually, at the end of the night, before everything closed down, before we said goodbye to our guests, we snuck out for a little bit to go take some pictures in the moonlight. And so I thought that that would be a really beautiful sentiment to add onto a larger photo from that photo shoot. And then the other one that says, let's go, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, I think is what it says. I'm trying to read it. I have an idea for a spread that I want to make where there is essentially a flip out element, but there's a peekaboo in the middle where there's something transparent and you can see the photo behind. So I did hold it up to a photo there for just a few minutes to see what would this look like if there was a photo behind it. And you can slightly see the photo enough that I think that that would be a really cool element. So I set that to the side with the stamps because I think I can make a repeat stamp type of pattern paper and then create a story with that. And then I also thought for the story concept that it would be really fun to talk about the night that Aaron and I became like officially boyfriend and girlfriend, which I'll tell you a little bit more of that story here in just a few minutes. So next I turned my attention to the journaling cards, and I will be perfectly honest that I love this kit. I love the concept of this kit. I am a night person, like 100% a night person. But I had a really hard time planning with this kit. I don't know why. I think a lot of the elements that made me feel really excited about this kit made me feel excited because of what I could do with them digitally, if that makes sense. So to me, this kit is so good, like so good for the hybrid possibilities. And then when I actually went to use the physical product that you can't necessarily manipulate in the same way as digitals, I just was having a hard time of what do I do? What do I do with this? What story can I tell with this? I end up coming up with a ton of stories today, and you'll see that as we come together because I sectioned a lot of it off into really small like sections of story. So I've got there in the middle, I have the card that says bedtime with the 2 quotation marks that I thought would be really fun to tell the story of a song that my dad used to sing to us as kids when he put us to bed. So that could be like a childhood bedtime story. And then I could use the quotation marks to signify the lyrics or, you know, the words that he would sing. I also loved all those little metal embellishments and thought that those could be really cool as almost bullet point type of sections for journaling. And I liked, there's a card at the bottom, it's got like red stars on it, and it says, at night I'm feeling, or at the end of the day I'm feeling. And I thought that would be a really good card to use to tell the story about being a night person. And the way that I feel at night is I feel like alive and awake and creative and energetic. That would be, you know, a good card for that one. So it was just trying to figure out like what stories could I tell. And I think maybe the reason this one was hard was because I felt like maybe a lot of the sentiments didn't necessarily go together to help me tell one story. It just seemed like there were widespread stories to tell, if that makes sense. So I'm working my way through the cards here, just trying to see what jumps off at me, what stories spark as I'm looking at the products. I have an idea for the Sweet Dreams card, and I thought about making it work with the physical card. Ultimately, I think it's going to be better with the digital card, so I'm just going to use that as a hybrid idea instead. And the idea basically is to take some photos of the things that my kids must have when they go to bed at night, and using that to tell a story of, like, you know, the stuff of night. And then having the Sweet Dreams be a title for that spread potentially. So that's one that I will do digitally. I'll probably do that through Patreon only, just as a hybrid project idea using this particular kit. And then I've also got, what else do I have on here? The golden hour up at the top. In planning out these evening stories, I've come to realize that I do not take a lot of photos in the evenings. And maybe that's because I'm spending most of my evenings crafting or getting work done. So those are the times of the day when I am least relaxing or least thinking about photography. And so I thought that those particular cards, the golden hour goodness, and then the it's all in the sunset or something like that chipboard piece, that could be a really good opportunity to set up a time for myself to do some photography during the golden hour of the evening. I'm never awake early enough to do it in the morning either, because I am a night person and I stay up too late, which means I sleep in too late. But that maybe if I designated a day and a time of like, okay, I am going to go out on Wednesday evening and take pictures during the golden hour and just see what comes out of that. That is a really fun jumping off point. And sometimes I love it when product does that. I love when product can help me to set some goals for myself, especially when it comes to photography, because I would love to get better at photography or to be more aware of photography. And for me, that's what that card did for me this time. Another thing I'm going to keep in mind as I'm project planning this is the color tones of the cards. So in this kit, we have some cards that are, you know, like the stark white and black. So we've got white and black, or we've got, you know, this really, really deep navy color, which you see in the bedtime there. It's also in the card at the bottom that's got like the starry night look. Also over in the left-hand side of this screen, you can see where there's the starry night with the journaling sections. Like those have a really, really deep blue color to them. And then there are some that have a more grayish green color, which is really cool because night is all different hues of colors, right? Like night isn't always black and it's not always blue, and sometimes it's got a greenish hint to it. And so I I like the way that the green toned cards go together, and I'm having a hard time mixing them with the blues and the blacks. So for right now, I have those all pulled to the side where they are together. And I'll decide later what to do with those. But I think that having, using the color schemes and kind of placing things together that visually go together in terms of their colors can be another great way to look for jumping off points for storytelling. Once I have my cards generally in the piles I want them to go into, I will next work on divvying up all of the chipboard pieces. So some of them will go to stories that make sense for them. Like I have the bedtime with the 2 quotation marks and then the good night also in there. That made a lot of sense to me. I also am adding a bunch of the asterisks up to the top one, just to get going there. My camera cut out here for a little bit, so I just decided to skip over the rest of the embellishment part because you'll see where I placed things as we start sketching them here. And then let's just go ahead and get into the sketching of these projects. So part of the benefit to me for sketching out my projects like this is it gives me an opportunity to cut up some of my cards right here at the beginning, and then I can repurpose what I have left to tell other stories, which you're going to see me do that a little bit here as we're planning. For these metal embellishments, I chose 5 of them. One of them I have in a different story, which you'll see here a little bit later. So the remaining 5, I liked the idea of using them on a 6x8 page or a outside of the page protector 6x8 page on top of 5 of these patterned stickers. They're like cardstock stickers shaped as a circle. Those circles, just so you know, are 3/4 of an inch. So a lot of times when I work in Photoshop, I will create like place markers for where to stick my stickers, and I will color them just slightly off-white so that I can add my sticker on top of it and not have to worry about lining up perfect placement. It just helps me in that way. So in case that's something you like to do too or would like to try, those are 3/4 of an inch in diameter. So what I'm thinking is that I will add my circles there across the center and then maybe create some stitched lines for separation. And then where the lines or where the separation is, in the blank space, I'll add journaling that pertains to maybe something to do with the metal piece. So for instance, the wine glass, maybe we could talk, or I could talk about, how Erin and I like to have a craft beer most nights together, or, once the kids are in bed, or maybe the sleep mask. I can talk about like how late we go to bed at night or that we're night people. That sort of thing. And then to create a photo that will go up at the top. My story concept is basically, what is an average night for us? On average, what are we doing most nights of the week? And then I also really liked this star card here and the way that the evening piece kind of pops off of it. So I'm thinking I will use that for my title piece, add the photo on top, and then make this a one-page deal. Next, I am going to see if I can figure out something to do with this transparency piece. And I'm playing with the idea of using it on a 12x12 canvas. Ultimately, I'm not going to do this, but this is going to get me started in thinking about what do I want to do with these felt pieces. Now, these felt pieces were an add-on. I really like using felt for texture in my projects, and I knew right away that the stars, if nothing else, I could use for December Daily later in the year, but I really liked the idea of using what I could for the spreads this time as well. So I chose all 4 of the larger moons and then the largest of the 3 stars. So I have 5 shapes there. And these shapes are going to be place markers for where journaling will go. So basically a way to direct your eye to different chunks of journaling. I considered adding the quote there that says, the truth is you never know whose sky you're lighting up simply by being yourself. So I thought about adding that in the middle section, maybe making it a 6x8 or something along those lines. And then maybe taking the star transparency and putting it at the bottom. I'm just playing around with placement because at this point, I really don't know what I want to do there. And ultimately, I'm thinking, I don't really like the way that that looks. Let's come up with something a little bit different. But I love the way that those felt pieces fit down the side of the page. So I want to figure out how can I keep that, but do something a little bit, different. So what I'm going to do is take, I like the way that the evening routine looked at the top there. So I'm thinking maybe that's what I want to do. And then I am going to slightly shift down all 5 of those shapes to leave room for some kind of title at the top. And then this gave me the opportunity to maybe add on one of the transparency circles or something to bring in a little bit more shape or just more embellishment to the page in general. I had a piece of that star pattern left, so I took it and I cut it in half, and I'm thinking that what I can do is layer that to the left of all those shapes. So then that can create some kind of separation between a photo, which I'm thinking of printing a giant photo there on the left side, and then the journaling on the right. I have a bunch of these wood veneer pieces, so I'm thinking I like the Buenas Tardes because, we don't actually speak a lot of Spanish in our house, but we're trying to speak more Spanish. So I like that as the title up there. I will eventually switch it out for something different because I want to use that title for a different page. So instead, I'm going to use the French version, which is Bonsoir, and add that at the top instead. And then I ultimately decided to grab the same pattern for the transparency circle, cut that circle in half, and then use that as the top piece to highlight the wood veneer. So now I've got a title. We're just going to go ahead and sketch this out. For this one, I thought maybe I could talk about bedtime routines for the kids. So how Aaron and I split between the kids. So he'll put Jonah to bed one night while I put Izzy to bed, and then the next night we swap. And we do that virtually every night. That way we both have an opportunity to put the kids to bed and to spend that little bit of extra time with them at night. So it's just been something we've really enjoyed. So that one I did go ahead and add into a pocket, and it is ready to go. This next one is an idea that I've had for a while. I thought about doing this with the Connect kit and making the centerpiece a heart, but then I ultimately didn't do it. So instead, I'm thinking let's do it with the circle. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of cardstock, well, 2 pieces of cardstock, and I want to cut a hole into the middle of them that is slightly smaller than the transparency circle. So then what I can do is I can adhere the transparency circle, or basically sandwich it in between the 2 pieces of cardstock. So now you have this transparent element that lets you see through to what is underneath. For the top of it, I'm thinking I'll just take maybe the evening stamp and stamp that out as a repeat on the front of that. So it's just like a pattern with the circle in the middle. And then when you open it up, you have the circle on the back, right, where it's transparent through to the back side. And I'm thinking I'll just hand journal all around the circle. I've got a brush pen that maybe I could use there, or maybe I'll use my Slick Writer pen. That's one of my favorite pens to use for journaling, just because I like the thickness of it on the page, and I like how dark it is. So it's just dark and consistent. Then I'll do some kind of photo on the back side. And then I also thought about changing out my stamping here. So we'll see when I actually do this page what I decide to do to the word double, or words double moon. So I'm going to use that page to tell the story about the night Aaron asked me to be his girlfriend, which is just a really funny story about a hoax of seeing a double moon back in August of 2010. So I'm going to tell that story with that page, and I'm really, really looking forward to it because it's a story that makes me laugh even to this day that we thought that that was going to be a thing. So funny. So this is going to be another pretty fairly easy one. This one, I want to take the circle here. I want to add it to the bottom of a large photo where it's got the ability to be swiveled. So I'll add maybe a glitter star brad or something into the corner, and then you'll be able to swing the circle open in order to read the journaling underneath and just to talk about, you know, the end of the night of our wedding. So that's what this is going to be all about. I do also like the way that these wood veneer look with the 3 asterisks around it. So I'm thinking maybe I will also add that onto the page as well. We'll just have to see once I get the photo printed how everything looks. And, you know, at that point, I'll also be able to see where I'll be able to put the circle transparency as well so that it doesn't cover us up. So that's going to be that one. So next we're moving on to these greener tinted colors, I want to say. So I've got the Sweet Dreams, I've got, you know, the diagonal stripe, and then I've got a quote card there as well, which says the exact same thing as the transparency does. It's the "you never know whose sky you're lighting up just by being you," which I love that sentiment, by the way. I love that sentiment. I think that's such a good thing to even say to ourselves, like, that you just never know. You never know the difference that you're making in other people's lives, because we really don't know. We don't know what we don't know. So I am thinking here, I have this star transparency that I also would like to use up for some stories. And I love the way that the chipboard looks on top of it. So I'm like, what if I created some kind of story where I could cut this transparency down into a 3x4 card and use that as a transparent element, or maybe, you know, it's just backed with white or something, but regardless, where I could use that as a pattern in my story. So this brought me to an idea to tell a story about my daughter. This is another one that's going to be a really odd shape because I have a story that I'm working on the backside of. So it will make a lot more sense once I get this album finished and flip through. You'll be able to see, you know, exactly how that all works. So I have this section on the right side that is essentially a 6x6 square. So what I want to do is to take the Sweet Dreams and to turn that into a 6x6 journaling page where I can just add a bunch of story there. And then to get it into the album, I'm thinking of using the stripe card in order to you know, put that on the edge and then hole punch it and add it into the album. Then I also will use a photo of some sort. I have a divided it's a 6x8 that's divided into 2 3x8s. So I'm thinking of doing a 3x8 photo of my daughter sleeping. And then I've got, you know, a couple of those journaling cards that I can add as well. So one that had the quote on it, and then one that I'm thinking I'll add this transparency into with the chipboard piece. So that will be a story. Somewhere along the way, I had an idea of what to do with this one. So this is the full quote on transparency. I love that it's on yellow. Yellow is one of my favorite colors to use, to wear, to see, all of it. I love yellow. Orange is also in the same. I love orange too. So what I'm going to do here is take this transparency and cut it down into a traveler's notebook sized page. So that is 4 1/4 by 8 1/4, trying to keep the sentiment as close to the center as possible. I have a pocket page notebook that I like to work in throughout the year. So my pocket page notebook tends to be where I add a lot more heavy journaling, and it has a pocket in the middle, hence pocket page. Now, I get a lot of questions on where do I get the pocket page notebooks. They are only sold out of Australia. It is a lot of shipping, like the shipping cost is pretty high in order to get them here into the States, but it is a really high quality product and I do love them. So I guess if it's something you're interested in investing in, I would get more than one and have them sent so that you don't have to reorder them all the time in order to save on shipping. So just my 2 cents on that. So I'm going to stick that transparency down inside of the pocket. So that will be the transparent element going in between the 2 sides of the page, which I think will be super cool. Then on one side, I will add a photo of myself, some kind of selfie. That's generally what I go with in that album. And then on the left side, I'm going to use the card that says, you know, at the end of the day, I'm feeling ... And I'm going to use that as my jumping off point for journaling. So likely I'm just going to take the top section there and trim off the rest of the white and then add just that section to the top of the page or to the top of a page of journaling. And then as I was getting ready to put this away, I thought, why not bring out some of those circle stickers that have sentiments on them and use those sentiments on the circles as my journaling points. So there are some, like one says night owl, one says end of the day, I think. One says so tired. I forget the other ones. And I'm also picking ones that have more of the blue tones to them, and then the one that's yellow, because I thought the yellow with the yellow would be pretty nice. So those are the ones I'm picking here. I've got 6 of them total, and I will just line those up down the side of a journaling page and add some text that pertains to those that also helps to be a little bit more descriptive of what an average night looks like for me personally. So I'm going to add my title, add a little bit of notes so I can remember what it is I want this page to be about. And then I'll draw my circles on there just as a reminder, like, don't forget you're going to use circles as you're journaling for that page. And then we'll stick that one and put it away. This next one, I want to tell the story about my husband's evening routine. So with this kit, I was able to get a lot of our family stories told. So I've got one for Izzy. I've got one for our family in general, like how we handle putting the kids to bed. I've got one for me, like what do I do after the kids go to bed? One for my husband, what does he do after the kids go to bed? You know, that sort of thing. So for this one, I've got the card that says evening routine right on it, where I'm thinking I can use that as my title piece. And then I also have some of the evening card. It's a pattern card there that I'm thinking that might work. I've got more of those circles that I can use to do the same type of journaling style for him that I did for my own page. So I've got 5 of those total. And then it's just trying to figure out what title do I want to add to his. Ultimately, I will go into that 12 by 12 spread and pull out the Buenas tardes sentiment, because one of his things that he does every night is to practice Spanish with Duolingo. He's really trying to learn Spanish and be able to speak it fluently for a number of reasons. One being that my sister's fiance's family lives in Mexico, and some of them don't speak English, so it would be really nice to be able to converse with them on that front. And then also my husband's grandparents are immigrants, or his grandfather is an immigrant from Mexico, and his grandma's family immigrated from Mexico. I don't know if she was actually born here, but I know that she was raised here. So their first language is Spanish as well. They fluently speak English, but it would also be really cool to be able to converse with them in Spanish as well. So lots of reasons to learn Spanish, even though, you know, aside from the fact that it's just his heritage in general. So it made sense to me to use the Spanish sentiment for good night on this spread, and then to put that on top of the remaining piece of the star circle transparency. So again, we're using those as title builders, which I think is pretty cool. And then I've got the starry pattern pulled out as well, because what I'm thinking I'll do this time is to trim off the evening routine, add that onto a 3x8 journaling page, and then to use the star pattern just to cut a small piece of it to use as a separator between the title and the text, especially if my cardstock is not exactly the same white as the card is itself, which often happens for me. So I'm just cutting a couple pieces of those to use for the story there, and then adding that into the pocket, and then we'll move on to the next one. We're getting there. I told you there was a lot of stories this time that came out of the product that I had here, just a ton of them. For this one, I am going to have a story that goes inside of my niece's baby album. So I have sent a message off to my sister-in-law telling her to, at the end of a night, one night, to just sit down and tell me a story about what happened. Like, what did they do that night? What does an average night look like? It could be that story. It could be just like specifically what was tonight like. just to give me an idea of what does the nighttime look like for their family right now while they've got a 7-month-old baby. I think that that will be a really cool story to look back on in the future when, you know, nighttime routines change as their kids grow and as they add more children, if they want, to their family. So that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to use the quiet evening, chaotic evening journaling prompt as the jumping off point for this spread. And then I like the way that the banner looks on top of the grid pattern. So I'm going to cut a piece of the grid pattern, use that there. And then I also had the remaining bit of the transparency with the stars on it that I will use for that spread as well, in addition to a photo. So this one I'm going to get started on, and then I'm going to set it to the side and work on a different one instead. But this one I'm thinking is what I'll do for this golden hour goodness. So as I said before, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to intentionally take photos during the golden hour of one night this week. And then I'm going to take those photos and add them into 2x2s, and potentially also have a large photo as well, and just talk about that. Talk about taking pictures at that time. But like I said, I'm going to set that to the side here and then work on this other one instead while I have it at the forefront of my mind. So this is a story that I pulled out this traveler's notebook right here to potentially tell the story in. And I do find a page and I do like set it up to go into my random story traveler's notebook. Later on, I decide I'm actually going to put this into a completely different traveler's notebook that I have created for myself. It's one that I had started for a big picture class that I taught about storytelling with scrapbooking. And I created this album that I called Bedtime Stories. And I called it that because my daughter used to ask us, she doesn't anymore now that I think about it, but she used to ask us to tell a story about when we were kids every time we put her to bed. And we would like rack our brains to try and come up with a story to tell her about when we were kids. So I started making a traveler's notebook that documented stories from when I was a kid to call bedtime stories that I could like bring up and flip it to a page and read her one of the stories and actually have a photo that went with it so that she could, you know, relate the story to the photo. So it's just like an idea. I don't even know where I mean, that's where the idea came from, but you know, it's something that's like totally different. So what I did is that's where, I guess where I'm going with this is that is ultimately where this story is going to end up instead of my random story. It's going to go in the bedtime story about when I was a kid, because this is a story about when I was a kid. What I want to do is use some pieces of this evening card, and then I also have the bedtime card in order to add journaling and a title piece for that page. And then one side I want to have, you know, a quote with the stamped out song lyric that my dad used to sing us when we were kids. And then on the opposite side to have a photo maybe of me in bed as a kid, or maybe if I have a picture of my dad putting us to bed. Like I need to go look through the scrapbooks that my mom had made for me. That's generally where I'm pulling out my older pictures from, and to see what I can find there to tell this story. So to finish this one out, I think this is the last one, I started to sketch this out. I've got the 2x2s there. I'm thinking of adding 6 photos into the 2x2s and then taking all of these card pieces that I have left and cutting those down into 2x2s as well to add into the remaining pockets. Some I can put vellum with text on top of it. Some I can add some embellishments on top of it, you know, just whatever suits my fancy for that particular day. Then for the golden hour goodness card, I want to create a plastic pocket just stitched on top of a photo where I can insert the card in there and then use the chipboard piece as the tab to pull it out. And then I have the back side to use for journaling for that project. So that one is pretty much going to complete that one. The rest of the project that I have remaining that you can see up at the top there is all going to go into a Project Life Project Life pocket. So that will be used later, and I just designated which week I plan to use it. All right, friends, that finishes up my project planning for today. So we ended up with 10 stories to tell in addition to a week of project life. So lots of different stories came out of this one. Some of them, just one or two things stuck out to help tell the story, which I think is why I ended up with so many this time. But yes, so I'm really excited to get started on this. I am not sure which story I'm going to tell first, so I will have to take this off screen and figure that out before I sit down and actually do the process video that you guys will see tomorrow. But tomorrow there will be a process video of the project that I choose to do first. And then on Wednesday, my plan is to create a blog post that will show you the finished spreads for all of the rest of them, or at least all of the ones that I will be doing for Story Kit Crush. That way you guys can see a little bit of a head start on that. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you got some inspiration out of this video as well. I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye, friends.